I was assigned under Mossad directives, stationed in Tel Aviv before being deployed into the shifting sands of Egypt. The year was 1982, the month unrecorded. Coordinates censored. My clearance was higher than most, yet fragments of this mission remain beyond comprehension. Our unit received instructions under a veil of Cold War paranoia. Cairo was silent in its heat, but whispers spoke of something buried deeper than oil or ruins. Moscow had stirred first. Washington pretended ignorance. We were ordered to intervene swiftly. My hands trembled not from fear, but from the weight of classified maps and sealed envelopes. Layers of intelligence hinted at a structure lost beneath shifting dunes, older than dynasties. The symbols traced on aerial images resembled no language recognized by scholars or cryptographers. I recorded oxygen readings, satellite synchronization, and the exact minute of our departure. Precision was my shield against uncertainty. Yet when I exhaled into the humid night, I swore the air tasted of metal, as if the desert itself exhaled with us. The opening frame of this account is both testimony and confession. My superiors demanded absolute clarity, stripped of imagination, but clarity is impossible. Shadows persisted in our path, moving against winds, ignoring physics. What follows is neither fiction nor memory. It is contamination. I can still hear the Cairo safe house, fluorescent light buzzing overhead, our gear spread like surgical instruments, radios silent. Silence carried mass. Each breath pressed against my chest. My teammates pretended discipline, but eyes flickered toward corners, where shadows stretched too long. Every mission begins with protocol, rank, designation, weapons check. Yet from the very first moment, something disobeyed protocol. The clock on the wall refused to advance. Our watches disagreed by seconds. When I blinked, it advanced by an hour. No one spoke. The mission was classified under nuclear threat parameters, though the language in the dossier avoided specificity. It referenced seismic disturbances along the Nile Delta, unexplained energy spikes registered by both Soviet and American satellites. New here? Welcome to Intel Uncovered, where chilling military horror stories come alive. Hit subscribe and step into the shadows with us. Satellites. Such data would never be shared openly, but the urgency felt palpable. Our cover story involved weapons smuggling routes, a plausible veil in the Cold War theater. Beneath that veil was the true directive: secure, survey, and if necessary, contain. Contain what, precisely, remained unstated. Commanders often withheld truth, but this silence seemed deliberate, sharpened. Egyptian authorities had been bypassed. Mossad operated under shadows, but whispers suggested American advisors would arrive if anomalies worsened. The stakes escalated beyond regional politics. This was no longer an operation about borders, but about forces older than borders, forces that predated history itself. I had been taught to trust in satellites, in encrypted communications, in steel precision. Yet every diagram suggested dimensions that refused geometry. Hallways twisted into impossible lengths, corridors bent without logic. Reports from intercepted transmissions mentioned sound frequencies that induced vertigo, confusion, and memory fracture. The psychological briefing warned us against illusions, but what intelligence dismissed as hallucinations carried the weight of fact. Entire squads, both Soviet and local, had vanished without trace, their equipment recovered in neat piles, boots aligned, weapons untouched, flesh absent. The desert kept its silence. Command informed us that failure meant escalation toward a broader conflict, potentially nuclear. Success, undefined, meant stability preserved. To secure something nameless was an impossible directive, yet it was the kind of directive we obeyed without question. Obedience was survival, or so we believed, or so. I reviewed dossiers of missing operatives, men whose records ended mid-sentence. Pages contained blurred images, helmets dented, radios still transmitting static laced with chanting. Families were told lies, reports rewritten. It became clear to me that truth was expendable currency, traded away to preserve fragile order. The stakes became personal in that moment. Beyond politics, beyond national defense, we were entering a realm where reality itself resisted control. Command sought containment, but I began to wonder if containment was even possible, or if we were merely feeding the unknown. The team assembled in Cairo under false identities, each of us trained to erase ourselves from photographs, records, and memories. Yet within the silence of the safe house, identities surfaced. We were soldiers, but also men carrying fragments of personal histories into impossible terrain. Our commander was Avi Rahamim, a veteran of too many border wars. His presence felt metallic, steady, unbending. His eyes carried weight like lead, unwavering until silence stretched too long. He trusted in maps, mathematics, and the belief that reason could anchor chaos. Beside him stood David, our medic, educated in Zurich before Mossad claimed his knowledge. He had the calm of an operating theater, hands steady even when the air vibrated. He collected herbs and powders in secret, as though ancient remedies whispered louder than antibiotics. Yael, the demolitions expert, carried precision in his veins. He spoke little, but his hands lived for mechanisms. He could disassemble explosives blindfolded, could turn metal into dust with gestures of exactitude. Recklessness followed him like a shadow, though he cloaked it beneath technical brilliance. Eli, the communications specialist, possessed the analytical obsession of a code breaker. His room filled with wires, headphones, oscilloscopes humming like beehives. He heard patterns others ignored, voices hidden beneath static. At night he spoke of frequencies that sang back to him, though none believed. And there was Moshe, our veteran leader, older than the rest, scarred by wars unrecorded. He spoke with a voice carved from gravel. His steadiness was a fortress. Where others flinched, he endured. Where others hesitated, he advanced. His presence tethered us to something human. We moved like parts of a singular mechanism, though the mechanism concealed fractures. Avi believed in logic, but dreamt of sands swallowing men whole. David trusted in science, but fingers brushed amulets. Yael mocked superstition, yet carried a coin from his mother for protection. Eli kept notebooks filled with numbers, codes without keys. He smiled rarely, though when he did, his teeth clenched as though restraining words. Moshe carried silence like a shield. His discipline was absolute, though his eyes, when caught in reflection, betrayed exhaustion without end. I studied them as one studies comrades before descent into darkness. Bonds were unspoken yet essential. Survival in the desert required more than weapons and radios. It required trust that when sandstorms howled, the man beside you would not vanish into myth. Personal details, small as they were, burned themselves into memory. Avi's way of folding maps precisely into quadrants. David's tea, brewed bitter, never sweetened. Yael's whistle, tuneless but constant. Eli's pen-tapping rhythms older than language. Moshe's habit of staring too long at horizons. The mission demanded detachment, but detachment proved impossible. I carried fragments of them as one carries charms. I realized that if the desert claimed us, these fragments might outlast even bones. It was not comradeship alone. It was a binding, almost ritualistic in nature. The briefing occurred at dawn, shutters drawn tight against the Cairo glare. Avi read the orders aloud, his tone clipped, each word falling like steel. The operation was designated as reconnaissance and potential containment. Language remained clinical, though shadows on the map suggested unspoken dangers. Coordinates were provided in fragments, delivered across multiple channels, as though command feared interception, or perhaps feared our own comprehension. The target lay beneath dunes once shifted by floods of antiquity. The briefing declared it a subterranean structure of anomalous architecture. No further elaboration followed. We reviewed aerial photographs, edges blurred by static interference. The lines resembled geometric patterns, yet they twisted into angles that repelled focus. Eli leaned closer, tracing with his pen. The ink bled strangely, forming shapes not present before. Avi closed the folder with abrupt finality. Each operative performed equipment checks with ritualistic focus. Rifles were disassembled and reassembled. Explosives weighed precisely. Medical kits inventoried thrice. Radios tested against bursts of coded numbers. Every movement aimed at precision, but precision felt hollow, as if we armed ourselves against something intangible, unseen. The deployment plan called for night insertion. Vehicles carried us southward, then west, toward coordinates lost within undisturbed sands. Egyptian patrols were to be avoided entirely. Failure meant exposure. Exposure meant conflict. Yet conflict felt less terrifying than the silence surrounding what awaited beneath. David requested clarity on environmental hazards, oxygen fluctuation, subterranean heat, potential collapse. Command offered statistics without conviction, voices dry, eyes refusing to meet ours. They emphasized efficiency. They avoided the word survival. Silence lingered, heavy with omission, pressing against our lungs more than desert air. Yael prepared charges, muttering equations under his breath like scripture. His focus was surgical, though the tremor in his voice betrayed excitement bordering on dread. He spoke of corridors, collapsed vaults, the possibility of ancient engineering. The word ancient slid through the room like smoke. Moshe asked about Soviet presence, his gravel voice steady. Reports confirmed intercepted transmissions, yet no confirmation of current deployment. Command speculated their squads had withdrawn or vanished. Vanished remained the unspoken possibility. Moshe nodded once, neither surprised nor reassured. His silence tightened the room further. We were instructed that any symbols or artifacts encountered must be secured, not destroyed. Photographic evidence prioritized above physical removal. Yet the tone of command suggested something more. Containment not of material, but of influence. The directive shimmered with fear disguised as procedure. When briefing concluded, a silence filled the safe house. None spoke of what we truly feared. Each man retreated into his own preparations, adjusting straps, cleaning lenses, scribbling notes. The air itself seemed metallic again, vibrating faintly as though the desert outside pressed against the walls. I remember Avi folding the map precisely, sliding it into his chest pocket with reverence. His hand lingered too long on the fabric, as though touch alone could anchor reality. His eyes met mine briefly, carrying weight that words could not bear. Deployment was irreversible. Night fell like a curtain as our convoy left Cairo, engines low, headlights stilled to avoid detection. Sand swallowed landmarks, stars offered unreliable bearings. The men spoke in monosyllables, inventorying equipment. I recorded time, latitude, as if ink could anchor what desert intended to erase. We moved with minimal lights, tires whispering over sand, each vehicle a dark lung in formation. Eli monitored frequencies, his headset a live wire to unknown spaces. Radios replied with static that felt conversational. I logged signal strength, battery cycles, slowly tightening in my chest. At first light, we halted beyond a ridge, breath fogging in air that tasted of copper. Dunes lay like sleeping beasts, their crests erasing tracks. Yael signaled silently, gestures precise. He checked charges while David measured ambient pressure, jotting numbers that refused consensus among instruments. We abandoned vehicles at a waypoint, moving on foot with backpacks loaded. Wind diminished, sound contracted until our breaths became percussion. Moshe led steady, compass in hand though needles spun uncertainly. Shadows pooled where light should fall. The sand itself seemed to hold its breath. As we crested a final dune, a ridge revealed shapes not found on satellite imagery. Angular stones arranged, half-buried doors yawning toward darkness. Our instruments flickered, recalibrated into nonsense. Eli cursed. His hands trembled as if translating an unreadable language and marked discrepancies in readings. We entered through a seam where stone gave way to corridors, walls too smooth. Temperature dropped abruptly, our breath visible as ghosts. A faint hum filled the passage, steady as a heartbeat, synchronous with Eli's headset. Moshe signaled silence. Even wind seemed forbidden in space. Symbols glimmered along the walls, not painted but alive. They shifted when looked at directly, folding into angles compatible with neither Euclid nor memory. I photographed them, the camera refusing focus. Each image returned blank frames, as if the glyphs chose visibility selectively and intermittently. A distant sound became pattern. Low chanting threaded with language I did not recognize, yet strangely personal. Names unspooled, syllables warped into hollow geometry. Eli froze, whispering numbers which answered the chant. My throat closed. An animal part of me recognized its name being called. Shadows lengthened independently of light sources, pooling near corners, crawling like oil. Yael gripped detonators until his knuckles whitened, muttering calculations to steady his hands. David murmured reassurances, cataloging symptoms with clinical tone despite his voice trembling. Moshe paled, set his jaw and continued forward. Compasses revolved without finding north. GPS units recalculated paths into coordinates that corresponded to seas and mountains not present. Eli swore, marked discrepancies, converting coordinates into sketches. Our training had no protocol for maps that lied. The corridor folded back upon itself like a snake. A set of footprints appeared, human, leading away from our path toward a narrow alcove. They showed no weight, impressions of absence rather than presence. Yael crouched to examine them, fingertips hovering over the void. He swallowed, unable to categorize the sensation or name it. Talented as we were, the team faced failures beyond skill. Lamps extinguished with fresh batteries, as if something disliked illumination. The hum intensified into a low harmonic, resonant with bones. David clutched his chest, reporting a sudden drop in oxygen saturation without physiological cause immediately. Memory lagged like a damaged hard drive. Eli misremembered radio codes. David could not recall a suturing knot. Yael debated whether a fuse had been removed. Errors multiplied into narratives that refused to reconcile with training. We began to suspect perception itself was destabilizing rapidly. At the heart of the structure, a chamber opened like a wound. Columns rose with glyphs spiraling upward, shadows pooling at their bases. A shallow basin contained dark liquid reflecting places neither above nor below. Someone whispered a translation, which none could confirm aloud later. A pressure descended so precise it felt engineered. Chest compressed, breath measured in tight increments. Clock slowed, then accelerated, minutes folding into hours without cause. My pen recorded 23 minutes while my stomach insisted on 14 hours. We realized chronology was negotiable in that place. We established a perimeter, stringing sensors that blinked, then failed. Yael placed charges with hands that trembled like prayer. Moshe assigned watch rotations, though sleep refused the men. I prepared my recorder, sealed testimony in my mind, knowing what we took next could erase us. The first chamber gave way to a descending shaft, stairs carved with precision sharper than modern tools. Our boots echoed unnaturally, reverberations circling back delayed, distorted. I marked coordinates, though signals scrambled. The walls seemed porous, drinking light. David whispered that oxygen levels dipped unpredictably. Avi ordered silence, hand raised. We descended single file, each man adjusting gear compulsively. The shaft spiraled without deviation, yet our compasses indicated direction shifts impossible to reconcile. My wristwatch skipped seconds, then repeated them. Eli tapped his earpiece, muttering about inverted frequencies. At intervals, the stairs ended in platforms where glyphs glowed faintly, pulsing with rhythms too organic for stone. David reached to touch them, but froze, breath sharp. The glow shifted to match his pulse, flashing with his heartbeat. Avi pulled him back instantly. The deeper we traveled, the heavier the air pressed. Breathing became labor, oxygen meters swinging violently between stable and critical. My lungs felt coated with dust, metallic and granular. Shadows clung to us, reshaping when we turned. I wrote everything down, though my handwriting warped. Our lamps flickered simultaneously, plunging us into thick darkness. Silence pressed into our eardrums until Eli's headset erupted with voices layered atop static. They spoke in Hebrew, Arabic, Russian, yet overlapped into one chant. He ripped the earpiece free, trembling violently, muttering of echoes inside. Yael demanded we press onward, anger hiding fear. He tightened straps on his detonators, repeating calculations under his breath. His voice kept rhythm with our steps, anchoring us. Each syllable seemed to push back at the silence, though the silence grew heavier with resistance. We reached a landing where the stairwell widened into a vaulted passage. Columns lined either side, carved into shapes resembling both human and animal forms. Their faces eroded yet alive, shifting subtly when observed. My stomach churned, as if I watched breathing statues under stone. Mossad commanded torches lit. Their flames fought invisible currents, twisting sideways, then vertically. Heat radiated yet failed to warm. Yael cursed, refusing to look upward. Shadows gathered at the ceiling like predators circling. Avi raised his weapon, though there was no target, only unseen weight. Our instruments collapsed further. Compasses spun. GPS reported oceans above us, mountains beneath. Radiation meters ticked steadily higher, then fell to zero. David logged readings mechanically, his handwriting precise despite trembling. He whispered about medical phenomena, cardiac rhythms irregular, brain waves shifted. Avi silenced him with glare. Further descent revealed chambers resembling laboratories or temples. Metal beams intersected with stone carvings, architecture incompatible with chronology. Walls sweated condensation, though air remained dry. Symbols flickered faintly, rearranging themselves when not observed. My photographs returned blank again. I realized evidence had chosen refusal. Eli knelt to adjust antennas, his face pale. He reported signals broadcasting through walls themselves, voices translated into electromagnetic pulses. They called his name directly. He pressed palms against ears, yet smiled faintly, as if recognition soothed him. Avi yanked him upright, demanding focus. We passed doors sealed by mechanisms unrecognizable, rotating plates, shifting bars, grooves pulsing faint light. Yael sketched diagrams feverishly, muttering about geometries unknown. His pen snapped mid-line, ink splattering into shapes resembling glyphs. He dropped the notebook, refusing to retrieve it. Shadows consumed it silently. David administered stimulants as fatigue gripped us. My muscles ached as if gravity had doubled. He confessed quietly that blood oxygen saturation plummeted, though none collapsed. "Something else is feeding us," he whispered. Avi ignored him, but I felt the truth in my veins. At last we reached a massive archway, carved wider than cathedrals, leading into darkness deeper than night. The hum resonated stronger, vibrating teeth, bones, even thought. Avi raised his hand, signaling readiness. Our orders had prepared us for many things. Nothing prepared us for entry. The archway swallowed us whole. Our lamps cut thin beams against the black, revealing corridors stretching at odd diagonals. The air thickened, metallic in taste. Avi ordered systematic sweeps. Mossad marked walls with chalk, though the symbols distorted, smearing themselves into unrecognizable spirals within minutes. We advanced by procedure. 2 forward scouts, medic central, communications rear. Weapons held steady, though targets remained absent. Eli scanned frequencies, reporting intermittent bursts of coded numbers in Russian, then silence. His equipment insisted a transmission occurred only seconds earlier, impossible in such depths. Yael established reference markers using microcharges, controlled detonations echoing like heartbeats. Dust fell, though the walls appeared unscarred. He scowled, muttering about resilience beyond steel. David cataloged vitals, forcing us to log pulse, temperature, respiration. Each entry contradicted reality, numbers fluctuating faster than hands could write. We discovered chambers resembling storage, empty racks, corroded implements, glass cylinders filled with airless voids. Each artifact appeared abandoned deliberately. I photographed obsessively, though frames continued developing blank. Eli whispered about waves interfering with film grain. I wondered instead whether images feared being preserved permanently. Mossad attempted to establish rest cycles. He rotated watches, yet no one truly slept. The hum beneath the walls persisted, synchronized with our veins. Eli tapped his headset, murmuring lullabies none of us recognized. Yael cursed at him, threatening silence, but Eli only smiled faintly. Routine collapsed when time betrayed us. Avi's chronometer logged 4 hours. My watch insisted 90 minutes. David's pulse readings suggested days. Hunger never arrived. Thirst did not sharpen. Our bodies endured, yet our minds rebelled. Procedure remained our only anchor, fragile thread against incomprehensible dimension. We secured a perimeter inside one chamber. Yael calibrated charges to collapse tunnels if necessary. His hands shook, though he disguised tremor with mathematical chance. David disinfected imaginary wounds, his gloves stained by nothing. Moshe cleaned his rifle mechanically, movement steady, eyes betraying exhaustion etched in stone. Avi delivered reassurances, his voice ironclad. He spoke of containment, of survival, of returning home. Yet shadows flickered behind him, elongating beyond light sources, curving unnaturally. I forced myself to record his words, clinging to discipline. The act of writing felt sacramental, a barrier against dissolution. Normal operations demanded mapping. We charted corridors, intersections, descent points, yet maps erased themselves as corridors reconfigured subtly. Chalk vanished, string lines curved back to beginnings. Avi ordered continued documentation. I filled pages, diagrams breeding contradictions. The building lived, and our exploration became an intrusion into flesh. Despite dread, camaraderie persisted. Jokes whispered, brief smiles exchanged. These fragments of humanity kept us intact. Still, beneath the surface of each laugh, silence waited. We pretended normalcy, though reality thinned like old film. Every operation continued by rote, yet our foundation trembled unseen. It began without warning. During a sweep of an adjacent corridor, Moshe froze, his flashlight beam pinned against the wall. The chalk mark he had placed earlier now pulsed faintly, alive with color. None of us breathed. The spiral rotated slowly, independent of touch. Avi ordered approach. I advanced with recorder active, documenting temperature, light flux, radiation levels. Instruments returned gibberish. The chalk line shimmered as if wet, though fingers passed through nothing. Eli leaned close, headset twitching, claiming to hear syllables carried by static, forming our names individually. David tested the wall for material change. His gloves returned coated in dust metallic, unfamiliar. He examined residue under magnifier, pupils dilating. He whispered it resembled tissue, cellular structures without life. His calm voice cracked. He scrubbed his gloves against stone until bleeding appeared. We retreated briefly, regrouping at central chamber. Shadows extended, moving faster than our lights adjusted. Moshe reported hearing footsteps trailing us, measured perfectly in rhythm. We spun, rifles raised, nothing visible. The sound persisted one beat longer, then silence descended heavier than desert night itself. Yael swore, preparing a charge against the marked wall. Avi stopped him, citing directives. Secure, not destroy. Yael's hands trembled, detonator held like prayer. He argued about contamination, about infection. Avi silenced him with command authority. His face betrayed cracks, reason trembling beneath burden. Eli reported interference climbing in frequencies. Voices overlapped with static, layering into chants. He removed headset briefly, but murmurs continued from the device itself. He claimed the voices knew him, recited childhood details. His eyes watered as though in recognition. Avi seized the unit, deactivated it. We resumed exploration cautiously. Every chalk mark now bore subtle distortion, spiraling outward. Maps contradicted themselves further. David collapsed briefly, gasping, claiming sudden vertigo. He described the sensation of falling upward, as though gravity reversed briefly. He regained balance, though his skin glistened cold as stone. Silence fractured when one of Yael's microcharges detonated without trigger. Dust rained, though walls remained intact. The blast echoed strangely, repeating thrice in sequence, delayed. Each echo grew quieter, then reversed, sounding backward. Our ears bled faintly. Avi forced us onward, ignoring dissonance, eyes hollow. The first disturbance had arrived, subtle yet undeniable. We continued in formation, though procedure felt ceremonial now, a ritual against unseen currents. Every footstep carried weight disproportionate to sand or stone. Something within the structure had awakened, acknowledging our presence, recording our movements intimately. The corridors narrowed as if the walls inhaled, pressing closer with every step. Our lights flickered, beams breaking into fractured prisms. Avi ordered pace maintained. Moshe counted steps under breath, anchoring himself in rhythm. His voice steadied us, though each number warped faintly, syllables stretching unnaturally. We found footprints again, this time overlapping our own. Identical patterns, boot size, stride length. They curved away into alcoves we had not passed. My stomach tightened. Yael examined prints, muttering equations. He swore the impressions weighed less than air, negative pressure pulling upward. Eli pressed his headset tight. Static roared, then cleared into breathing unmistakably ours. He claimed to hear us speaking seconds before we spoke aloud. He repeated fragments of our conversations ahead of time, trembling violently. Avi struck the device from him, shattering silence harshly. Shadows became independent, separating subtly from our bodies. They elongated, curved sideways along walls, climbing ceilings where no surface existed. David whispered they resembled anatomy sketches, layers of muscle peeled apart. His voice broke into stuttering prayer. He disinfected hands obsessively, though gloves already raw and bleeding. The architecture fractured into contradictions. One hallway repeated endlessly, returning us to a central chamber. Chalk marks sprawled like veins across walls, forming networks beyond control. Moshe's patience broke. He fired into shadow. Muzzle flash illuminated statues that were not there before, frozen in mid-motion. Yael insisted detonations would anchor reality. He placed charges at intersections, muttering formulas between clenched teeth. Avi forbade detonation again, warning against collapse. Their voices rose sharply. Echoes of argument replayed seconds later, layered over themselves, as though structure mocked the illusion of command. We attempted to map with string lines. The lines twisted upward, forming knots by themselves. Slack pulled into unseen currents. Eli collapsed laughing, claiming the building corrected our errors. His laughter turned to choking sobs. Moshe carried him by collar, eyes grim, unflinching. Rest cycles became hallucinations. David reported patients speaking in tongues during his sleep. Yael swore explosives whispered calculations. Avi's hands trembled when he believed unobserved. Moshe sat sentinel, eyes locked forward, refusing to blink. I wrote compulsively, fearing memory would decay without witness, fearing my pen insufficient. Footsteps returned, now louder, echoing behind and ahead. No figures appeared. Dust shifted with prints forming visibly. We froze, rifles raised, safeties off. The prints advanced toward us, halting 2 meters away. Silence enveloped us. Then the prints retreated slowly, vanishing into shadow thick as liquid. The atmosphere bent heavier, air dense with iron taste. My chest compressed as though submerged. Avi whispered command to move, though his voice carried delayed, echoing seconds after lips moved. Shadows followed like loyal dogs, each step synchronized unnaturally. Rehearsed choreography against physics. Yael's detonators clicked spontaneously, armed without touch. He disarmed them frantically, sweat pouring. His calculations warped into nonsense symbols. Eli clutched headset fragments, pressing shards to ears, bleeding willingly. David applied bandages, though his hands trembled violently. Moshe's jaw clenched, his silence louder than any alarm. We pressed deeper regardless, discipline battling terror. Each corner revealed corridors bending impossibly, each wall alive with shifting glyphs. I documented relentlessly, though words twisted on paper, letters rewriting themselves faintly. The escalation was undeniable. The facility had acknowledged us fully now, and it waited. The encounter began with vibration. The floor quivered beneath our boots, subtle at first, then steady as a heartbeat. Dust cascaded from the ceiling, though no collapse followed. Eli whispered a countdown unprompted. When he reached 0, silence shattered into a resonance deeper than sound. A corridor ahead dilated, walls flexing like lungs. The air rippled visibly, as if heat shimmered underwater. From the distortion stepped something tall, pale, limbs elongated past human proportion. Its face featureless, save for hollows that rearranged whenever we blinked. Breathing felt suddenly optional. Avi raised his rifle, commanding halt. His voice fractured, echoing out of sync. The figure did not advance, yet its shadow moved closer, spreading across stone like a stain. Moshe leveled weapon steady, yet eyes betrayed shock, the kind only veterans could feel. David whispered medical terms, desperate categorization. He noted symmetry, absence of musculature, impossibility of movement. His notes became prayers, words dissolving. He clutched his kit as if scalpel might oppose impossibility. The figure swayed, and walls swayed with it, architecture bending toward obedience like kneeling stone. Eli pressed headset shards to his ears. He screamed that it spoke in frequencies, telling him coordinates, equations, fragments of his own childhood memories. His body shook violently, yet his face glowed with recognition, as if reunion. Avi ripped shards away, but static persisted. Yael armed a charge, trembling violently. He swore to detonate, shouting that geometry itself betrayed us. The detonator clicked, yet no explosion followed. The figure's shadow stretched, coiling around Yael's hands like ropes. His detonator dissolved, metal collapsing into sand grains before our eyes. The entity tilted its hollow face as if studying us. The hum in walls increased, synchronizing with our heartbeats. My chest convulsed in rhythm not mine. I tasted copper and saliva. My pen slipped. Handwriting turned angular, glyphs not of Hebrew, not of Earth. Moshe fired first, a burst controlled, measured. Bullets tore through space yet emerged on opposite wall, bending midair. No wound appeared. The figure's shadow writhed in sympathy, reaching outward. Moshe did not flinch, chambered another round, though his jaw trembled, cracks forming in his granite composure. Avi ordered retreat, yet the corridor behind us bent inward, sealing with stone. The figure advanced now, slow but inevitable. Its steps made no sound, yet reverberations struck our chest with seismic weight. David screamed, clutching his ears, claiming to hear bones grinding in chorus. The entity paused at arm's length, though no distance truly existed. Its hollow face tilted again. For an instant, I saw reflection. Our team within its void features, distorted like funhouse mirrors. Each man repeated endlessly, multiplied across dimensions stacked like broken panes of glass. Shadows detached completely now, slithering across floor, climbing our legs. Cold burned through uniforms, settling into marrow. Yael screamed numbers frantically, detonator fragments in hand. Eli moaned equations softly, eyes rolled white. David muttered diagnoses, veins visible through skin glowing faint blue. Moshe braced for impossible assault. Then the figure spoke without sound. The air vibrated words into us directly, bypassing ears, burrowing behind thoughts. It asked nothing. It announced presence. It named itself without language, overwhelming with recognition deeper than memory. My skull felt splitting, filled with echoes predating civilization itself. Avi raised his rifle again, defiance against inevitability. He ordered fire, his voice trembling yet resolute. We obeyed instinct, rounds erupting in unified storm. Shadows writhed violently, lights shattered, the hum crescendoed into roar. The figure dissolved like smoke, yet its presence remained carved into our marrow. When silence returned, we gasped, weapons smoking, ears bleeding. The corridor lay empty, yet not restored. Glyphs pulsed brighter. Shadows lingered longer. The entity had retreated, or perhaps simply dispersed. None spoke. We knew the first encounter was not conclusion, but initiation into deeper horror. After the entity vanished, silence grew unbearable. Radios emitted faint static resembling whispers. Eli clutched broken headset fragments, repeating coordinates aloud, his voice layered upon itself, seconds out of sync. He became conduit unwilling, each syllable bending atmosphere. Avi restrained him, but whispers seeped through regardless, persistent. David's medical readings collapsed into madness. Thermometers spiked then froze. Stethoscopes transmitted faint chanting instead of heartbeats. He stared at his own hands, muttering anatomy not human, veins arranged in patterns unfamiliar. He cataloged our symptoms as though dissecting corpses still living. His calm eroded steadily, irreversibly. Yael paced corridors, muttering detonator codes. His explosives refused obedience. Components fused together, metals liquefying into symbols etched across stone. He laughed bitterly, claiming the structure weaponized itself. He insisted we were inside an engine designed to consume. His laughter ended abruptly, replaced by hollow silence. Moshe remained steady, though I saw tremors in his jaw. He carried Eli when exhaustion bent him, barked orders to maintain discipline. Yet during rest cycle his shadow rebelled, standing upright while his body sat motionless. We avoided speaking of it, though all witnessed. Avi clung to command protocol, issuing reports aloud despite absence of receivers. His words became sterile, official, sanitized. Yet pauses grew longer, eyes darting to unseen corners. Authority fractured, though he forced voice into steel. His defiance against inevitability became shield, fragile yet necessary. We advanced deeper. Corridors folded unpredictably. Chalk marks returned, multiplied, forming maps beyond us. Eli traced them feverishly, claiming routes led upward, downward, sideways simultaneously. His handwriting dissolved into glyphs. He bled from ears, yet smiled faintly. He whispered that the building now trusted him with secrets. David pressed stethoscope against walls, reporting pulses. He declared corridors alive, vessels pumping unseen fluids. His voice shifted, laced with languages none recognized. He described organs spanning dimensions, inhaling us gradually. We begged him to stop, but he scribbled diagrams anyway, hands shaking violently. His notes glowed faintly. Yael armed last remaining charges. Detonators clicked erratically, shadows interfering. He screamed equations into void, detonating against walls that absorbed explosions without mark. Shockwaves returned delayed, striking us seconds later. He collapsed laughing, convinced time itself was weaponized. His teeth chattered as if detonators had migrated inside bones. Moshe led forward regardless. Grip iron. His shadow followed independently, sometimes carrying rifle when his hands were empty. He ignored this betrayal, refused acknowledgement. Avi watched him closely, suspicion weighing heavier than loyalty. I feared fracture between them more than entity surrounding us. A chamber opened vast as cathedral, ceiling lost in darkness. Glyphs spiraled upward like galaxies. At center a pool reflected not our images, but strangers. Faces pale, hollow-eyed, distorted. Eli approached entranced. He whispered recognition, calling names not ours. Avi restrained him violently, dragging him backward. The pool rippled despite stillness. From its surface rose hands pale, jointless, clawless. They reached without urgency. David screamed medical impossibility, then leaned closer, eyes wide with fascination. He insisted veins mirrored his diagrams precisely. He extended gloved hand before Avi struck him back forcefully, saving him. The hum grew unbearable, now melody. It bent our thoughts into rhythm. I felt memories unravel, childhood disassembled into fragments, mother's voice replaced by static lullabies. I wrote desperately, but letters rearranged mid-sentence. My testimony betrayed me, language mutating into glyphs untranslatable. Yet I continued compulsively. Shadows multiplied, filling chamber edges. They mimicked movements seconds delayed. Some walked independently, forming false patrols. Moshe raised rifle, refusing to blink. His shadow saluted mockingly. We aimed together, but bullets spun into ceiling. The shadows laughed silently, their mouths stretching wider than human skulls could accommodate. Yael attempted another charge, detonator fusing to palm. He screamed, flesh melding into metal seamlessly. We severed device with knife, but wound left nothing, no blood, only void. His hand ended clean as glass. He stared in horror, laughter replaced by sobbing unlike soldiers. Eli's voice changed, syllables mechanical, modulated through static. He transmitted uncontrollably, words scattering across walls, glyphs glowing in reply. Avi shook him violently, demanding silence. Instead, Eli's mouth opened wider than natural, frequencies pouring. Radios answered, repeating his name endlessly. His eyes rolled white, yet smile remained. David collapsed finally, muttering diagnoses of species unknown. He listed creatures extinct, unborn, impossible. His handwriting sprawled across skin when paper ended, diagrams etched into flesh with scalpel. He whispered about healing across centuries, bleeding knowledge into air. Avi restrained him, but his body glowed faint pulses. Moshe prayed silently. His shadow knelt beside him, hands clasped. Their lips moved differently. He ignored it, rifle steady. His endurance remained anchor. Yet I knew the price. memory. He stared through me sometimes, forgetting names. His silence deepened, replacing language with unshakable emptiness. Avi's command cracked visibly. His orders slipped into contradictions, demanding advance and retreat simultaneously. He barked denials at walls, whispering. He refused glyphs, refused distortions. Yet his shadow trembled like flame. His authority persisted through force of will alone, the last structure resisting collapse within collapsing labyrinth. I documented all, though pen betrayed me. Words twisted into spirals. My hand bled from pressure. Testimony itself resisted permanence. I felt presence behind writing, reading through me. This was escalation complete. We were altered irreversibly, not soldiers anymore, but conduits for something patient. The chamber pulsed alive, glyphs flaring with unbearable brilliance. Shadows converged toward the pool, twisting into forms barely humanoid. Avi ordered fallback, voice hoarse. Retreat was impossible. Corridors sealed, stone flowing like liquid. The air thickened into gel, each breath drawn like drowning. Movement slowed, yet entity beckoned. The pool erupted without sound, liquid rising like inverted waterfall. From it emerged the figure again, taller now, its hollow face multiplied. Dozens of void visages stared, each reflecting distorted fragments of us. Eli gasped ecstasy, declaring reunion. Avi restrained him, fists trembling with rage. Hands extended from the pool, pale and endless, touching stone gently. Each contact reshaped architecture. Columns bending, walls folding into spirals. David cried out, describing skeletal structures in motion, as though building inhaled and exhaled. His notes scattered, carried by wind that had no source anywhere. Yael screamed. Detonator fused again to ruined hand. His explosives ignited silently. Blasts swallowed instantly by glyphs. Shockwaves struck seconds later, multiplied, echoing forward then backward. His body convulsed, hair singed, yet flesh unburnt. He collapsed, laughter mixed with sobbing, whispering, "It feeds on precision." Eli became vessel. His mouth stretched unnaturally, static roared from his throat. Radios around chamber activated themselves, broadcasting coordinates, chants, unknown codes. His voice fractured into multiplicity, speaking in tongues both ancient and unborn. Glyphs glowed brighter with each syllable, feeding on language. Avi struck him down. Moshe fired again, defiant. Bullets curved into the pool, vanishing mid-air. Ripples spread outward, reshaping floor. His shadow detached completely, saluting the entity, rifle raised in mockery. Moshe's lips moved in prayer, but his shadow spoke louder. We averted eyes, refusing to witness betrayal fully. David collapsed into trance, carving glyphs across his arms with scalpel. Blood flowed briefly, then vanished into stone. His voice listed anatomy from species extinct for millennia. He claimed to remember births not his own, deaths across centuries. His eyes glowed faintly, pulse syncing with hum. Avi roared commands, denying inevitability. He ordered formation, rifles raised. We fired unified again, bullets sparking mid-air before folding into flowers of light. Petals drifted downward silently. Shadows consumed them greedily, swallowing sparks. The entity's face tilted, as if amused by futility, as if patient. The hum crescendoed, shifting into resonance beyond hearing. My teeth rattled. Skull vibrated. I lost balance, collapsed to knees. The floor pulsed, soft as flesh. Hands reached upward through stone, grasping ankles, releasing. The entity stepped closer, void faces overlapping, layered with echoes of our own. Avi advanced, rifle lowered, defiance in every line. He shouted his name, his command, his identity. The entity responded without voice, projecting endless silence filled with meaning. Avi froze, trembling, then fired point blank. The figure dissolved again, yet shadows remained, now denser, refusing disappearance. Yael's final charge detonated autonomously, light-searing chamber. For brief seconds, entity vanished entirely. Glyphs dimmed, silence collapsed. We seized chance, staggering toward corridor. Stone parted reluctantly, allowing passage. The hum retreated slightly, but presence persisted, following. We realized breach achieved nothing, contact established permanently, irreversible. Eli's body convulsed violently, static tearing from chest. Radios exploded one by one. His scream continued without lungs, reverberating through architecture. We dragged him despite resistance, his eyes blank, yet smiling faintly. Shadows clung tighter, pressing us forward. Retreat transformed into desperate escape through living corridors. David staggered behind, muttering diagnoses incoherent. He pressed bloody notes against walls, glyphs absorbing willingly. His knowledge became tribute. He collapsed briefly, Avi carrying him by sheer will. Moshe guarded rear, rifle blazing though bullets ignored. His shadow advanced ahead, guiding us ironically toward freedom. I clutched recorder, documenting fragments through trembling hands. Words spiraled into shapes no longer mine. I realized testimony itself was transaction. Each letter fed entity further. Yet I could not stop. Writing was anchor, though anchor dragged downward. Climax reached not in victory, but recognition. When at last we breached upward corridor, air shifted subtly. Oxygen surged metallic, lungs expanded painfully. Behind us hum receded, yet followed faintly. Entity had not been destroyed. It had tasted us, marked us, and allowed passage deliberately. We stumbled upward, altered irrevocably by encounter. We emerged into corridors unlike before. Stone bent outward, forming impossible arches that led toward upward incline. Oxygen surged metallic, slicing throats with every inhale. Our watches ticked erratically, seconds repeating, then vanishing. The air itself shimmered, colors wrong, light bending against natural law. Shadows dragged behind unnaturally. Avi drove us forward with hollow commands, his authority fractured yet necessary. He shouted bearings though compass spun wildly. Each step echoed too long, reverberating beyond walls. We moved regardless, instincts guiding where instruments failed. David stumbled, clutching chest, claiming ribs inverted. His breath whistled strangely, unhuman. Eli screamed equations, static pouring endlessly. His voice became weapon, shorting lamps as we advanced. Glyphs retreated reluctantly, dimming under his fractured syllables. Yet his body convulsed dangerously, veins glowing faint blue. Moshe carried him despite resistance, praying silently. His shadow walked ahead, strangely purposeful, guiding direction unseen. Yael limped, ruined hand pressed against wall. Flesh fused briefly, dissolving into stone before retracting. He screamed, but wound sealed seamlessly each time. He insisted building consumed him gradually. Avi dragged him forward violently, unwilling to sacrifice yet. Explosives useless now, his expertise reduced to pain alone. Stairs appeared, spiraling upward. We ascended rapidly, though distance never shortened. Time dissolved, each step multiplied infinitely. Watches displayed minutes, hours, years simultaneously. Our boots wore grooves into stone despite constant ascent. Avi demanded perseverance. David collapsed thrice, bones bending unnaturally, but rose again, compelled by unseen gravity. At last a door appeared, rusted steel, incongruent with stone. We forced it open together, emerging into desert night. Air cold, sharp, filled with metallic tang. The sky swirled too many colors, auroras unnatural. Stars blinked erratically, constellations rearranged. Shadows stretched in impossible directions, breaking geometry entirely. We staggered into sand, collapsing collectively. Relief drowned momentarily, then realization struck. Our watches read 20 minutes elapsed, yet by memory we spent 14 hours below. Time diverged entirely. Radios silent, base unresponsive, the silence of desert heavier than subterranean hum, pressing dread beyond comprehension. Eli convulsed violently, static blasting outward. His scream shook dunes, forming patterns across sand resembling glyphs. We restrained him barely. Yael clutched severed hand, staring into void where flesh ended, whispering acceptance. David muttered biology from centuries past, describing creatures extinct before human memory. Moshe prayed steadily, unbroken. Avi stood tall, eyes locked on horizon. He declared mission complete, though voice hollow. His authority reduced to ritual, repeated for survival. The desert responded with silence unnatural. Wind absent, stars pulsating faintly. My pen shook uncontrollably, words spilling without command, testimony now alive independently, writing through me. We attempted bearings. GPS devices spun erratic, displaying oceans where desert stretched. Coordinates shifted constantly, placing us simultaneously across continents. Sand beneath boots shifted texture, grains metallic, edges sharp. Blood seeped from our souls, yet no path presented, horizon infinite, unyielding. Escape became illusion sustained only by denial. Suddenly lights appeared, faint glows upon horizon, artificial. Relief surged. We staggered toward them, desperate. Yet distance never closed, lights retreating perpetually. Hours passed without progress, yet watches unchanged. Eli whispered truth. Lights were not salvation, but reflection of entity watching still. Avi silenced him harshly, denial absolute. When dawn finally broke, sun rose wrong, splitting horizon at multiple points. Shadows fell upward. Air shimmered metallic hues. We collapsed in unison, breath ragged, minds fractured. Escape achieved in form, but reality itself twisted. The entity had released us only to carry it outward. Eli no longer spoke words. His throat produced tones of static, oscillating like broken radios. Sometimes voices overlapped. Ours, strangers, children crying, languages dead. His eyes flickered white, reflecting symbols unseen. Avi kept him restrained, yet we all heard broadcasts regardless, pouring directly into consciousness without permission. Yael's wound remained unreal. His arm ended clean at elbow, surface like glass, perfectly smooth. No blood, no pain, no tissue. He waved Stump through air, watching it distort surroundings faintly. He whispered that void beyond skin whispered promises, pulling him gently. David's knowledge fractured entirely. He recited anatomy of birds extinct, lizards unborn, species hybridized. His tone remained clinical, yet accuracy unprovable. He pressed diagrams into sand with trembling hands, each drawing shimmering faintly before fading. He claimed to heal us across epochs, never present moment. Moshe's memory eroded. He forgot names, forgot prayers mid-sentence, forgot mission entirely. Yet his body acted perfectly. Rifle raised, formation maintained. His shadow now obeyed independently, sometimes saluting when he stood motionless. Avi relied on him most, though none could say which version led, man or shadow. Avi himself altered subtly. His voice carried authority unnatural, each command impossible to resist. Even unwilling, we obeyed instantly, reflex overwhelming. His eyes darkened, pupils dilated permanently. He barked orders into empty radio, and walls, sand, even wind responded faintly, as though acknowledging superior officer. I felt alteration too. My pen no longer obeyed fully. Words appeared before I wrote them, spiraling into shapes beyond my control. Pages filled without contact. I realized testimony itself became channel. I no longer documented, entity documented through me, using language as vessel. Together we staggered across desert, survivors yet not whole. Our conditions irreversible, explanations absent, instruments broken, bearings false, time fractured. We carried within us fragments of entity, consequences individualized. Survival was truth, yet return meaningless. Extraction awaited, but we feared arrival more than labyrinth itself. Silence between us deepened. Conversation dissolved, replaced by static from Eli, whispers from Yael's void, mutters from David's ancient anatomy, commands from Avi, prayers from Moshe's shadow, and compulsive writing from me. We were altered survivors, carriers unwilling, awaiting suppression inevitable, irreversible, eternal. Extraction arrived too smoothly. Armored jeeps appeared at horizon, tires silent on metallic sand. Soldiers wore visors concealing faces. They spoke no words, only gestures. We were escorted swiftly, loaded into transport. No questions asked, no relief offered. Process sterile, calculated, as though rehearsed endlessly. The base awaited, brighter than remembered walls immaculate. Officers greeted with practiced calm, eyes unreadable. Medical staff took David immediately, restraining gently, yet firmly. His notes were confiscated, diagrams burned discreetly. He screamed names of species as smoke rose. Staff did not flinch. Yael was isolated, arm examined with instruments unfamiliar. Scanners produced symbols instead of readings. Doctors whispered among themselves, then smiled politely. They dismissed anomaly as prosthetic injury. His stump shimmered faintly, unseen by them. He wept silently, knowing truth erased deliberately, buried beneath clinical denial. Eli's static voice silenced abruptly. Technicians inserted device into throat, dampening frequencies. He thrashed violently until sedation overwhelmed. Monitors displayed scrolling code, erasing itself instantly. Officers documented nothing. They declared his condition psychological trauma. His transmissions continued faintly through walls regardless, vibrating within our skulls relentlessly. Moshe received commendation. His discipline praised, survival framed as exemplary. Yet his name forgotten repeatedly, even on documents prepared for ceremony. His shadow saluted independently during debrief. No one noticed or pretended blindness. His memory rewritten officially. Empty facility, uneventful mission, no anomalies encountered whatsoever. Avi delivered report personally, his voice monotone, sterile, recounting mission with precision. He omitted horrors, replaced labyrinth with ruins, shadows with silence. Officers nodded approval. His words reshaped truth forcibly, testimony rewritten. We listened helpless, aware truth replaced by narrative. His authority now instrument of suppression. I was interrogated separately, questions clinical, detached. Every attempt to speak truth dissolved. My mouth produced sanitized phrases against will. I tried describing glyphs, shadows, entity. Instead, words emerged. Empty corridors, no threats, structural collapse. My testimony betrayed me. Officers nodded, recording lies dutifully without pause. Files sealed afterward, stamped non-existent. We were reassigned promptly. New roles aligned with conditions. David to Research Division, Yael to Experimental Prosthetics, Eli to Communications Archive, Moshe to Ceremonial Guard. Avi retained command. I was designated archivist, custodian of non-existent records. Suppression complete, irreversible, immaculate. Even outside interrogation, environment complicit. Electronics flickered faintly when Eli passed. Doors opened without command when Avi approached. Shadows lengthened unnaturally behind Moshe. Yael's arms shimmered at night, distorting walls. David muttered forgotten biology into microphones. Scientists transcribed eagerly. Yet reports erased themselves daily, files vanishing into void. We were instructed never to speak again. Oaths renewed, signatures written upon blank pages. Officers smiled coldly, ensuring silence eternal. They treated anomalies as resources, conditions as opportunities. Truth buried, replaced by bureaucracy. Mission officially never occurred. Facility never existed. We survived nothing. Reality rewritten effortlessly. In nights that followed, I wrote secretly. Pages filled without effort. Language not mine. Testimony compulsive, unstoppable. I knew suppression succeeded outwardly. Yet inside us entity remained, patient, feeding, altering. Debrief sterile, but suppression incomplete. Words linger, shapes crawl. Truth persists beneath fabric woven falsely forever. I sit now in my apartment, lights dimmed deliberately. Curtains drawn, though shadows seep regardless. They move independently, bending away from furniture, extending arms with too many joints. My hand trembles across page, yet words appear before ink touches. Testimony writes itself unrelenting, inevitable, eternal. Electronics misbehave constantly. Television activates alone, displaying containment logs in languages unrecorded. Laptop flickers with countdowns whose origin I cannot trace. Radio hums faintly though unplugged, repeating my name endlessly. Screens bleed symbols faintly glowing. I unplug cords, yet devices continue pulsing, betraying independence impossible to deny. Walls creak with footsteps heavier than human. They pace hallway outside my door, measured, deliberate. I never see figures, only hear weight pressing floorboards unnaturally. Each step resonates through chest cavity. I hold breath, waiting. Silence follows. Then knock occurs faint, rhythmic, unanswered always. Shadows grow impatient. They split from me entirely, standing at foot of bed, saluting mockingly. Some stretch across ceiling, mouths opening wider than bodies. They whisper promises I refuse to hear. My lamp flickers symbols, each pulse spelling warnings. I cannot decipher yet recognize imminence undeniable. I check watch obsessively. It displays times impossible, hours repeating, skipping, reversing. Sometimes digits form glyphs instead of numbers. Shadows from clock hands stretch wrong direction, upward toward ceiling. My reflection in glass blinks seconds late. Time refuses obedience, unraveling daily, yet I persist, clinging desperately to ritual. David's diagrams appear faintly across skin without blade. Yael's stump materializes in my dreams, opening void wider. Eli's static floods my ears even without devices. Moshe's shadow salutes in corner silently. Avi's orders echo from walls, compelling me still. Our mission never ended. Entity ensured continuation deliberately. I realize now suppression unnecessary. Entity waits patiently, infiltrating through us. It does not seek destruction, only observation. It is patient, ancient, watching humanity unravel itself willingly. My testimony unnecessary weapon. I continue regardless, writing endless. Pages fill endlessly, glyphs spiral. I am already conduit entirely. The entity is patient. It does not need to destroy us. It can wait. We shall finish destruction ourselves. That is final truth. That is final horror. That is what I leave behind, though words already belong to something beyond me, something inevitable, eternal.